Think deep. JustProfessor here, you pick the job with the guaranteed salary over the startup with huge potential. You choose the familiar restaurant over the new one that might be amazing. You stay in the relationship you know instead of taking a chance on something better. And every time you tell yourself you're being smart, but you're not. You're just afraid of the unknown. This is the ambiguity effect, and it's keeping you trapped in average choices while watching other people take risks and win. Your brain sees two options. One is clear and predictable. The other has unknowns. And even when the unknown option could be way better, you pick the safe one. Not because it's actually better, just because you know what you're getting. And that fear of uncertainty is costing you everything. So what is the ambiguity effect? It's when you avoid options with missing information, even when those options might be better than the ones you understand completely. Your brain hates uncertainty. It wants to know exactly what's going to happen. So when faced with a choice where some details are unclear, you reject it. You go with what you know, even if what you know is mediocre. Here's why this ruins your life. The best opportunities are almost always ambiguous. They come with unknowns. They require you to make decisions without having all the information. But your brain treats that ambiguity as danger. So you pass on the opportunity, you play it safe. And then you watch someone else take that same opportunity and succeed while you stuck wondering what could have been. Think about job offers. Company A tells you everything, your exact salary, your responsibilities, your schedule. It's all laid out. Company B is a newer company. They can't promise as much. There's potential for growth, but it's not guaranteed. The role might evolve. Things are less certain. Which one do you pick? Most people pick Company A not because it's better, but because it's clear. And 10 years later, Company B is thriving and the people who joined early are rich. But you're still at Company A, making the same safe salary you started with. The ambiguity effect shows up in every major decision. Investments. You can invest in a safe bond that gives you a small, predictable return. Or you can invest in something with higher potential but more unknowns. You pick the bond. Not because you analyzed the risk, but because you hate not knowing. And over time, your safe investments barely beat inflation while people who took calculated risks built wealth. Relationships too. You meet someone new. There's chemistry. There's potential, but you don't know them well yet. There are unknowns. Will they be loyal? Will they understand you? Will it last? So you don't pursue it. You stick with what you know. The relationship that's comfortable but not exciting. The one that's predictable but not fulfilling. And years pass and you're still in that safe, mediocre relationship while the person you could have had moves on. Here's what makes the ambiguity effect so dangerous. It disguises itself as wisdom. You think you're being careful. You think you're being responsible. You tell yourself you're avoiding unnecessary risk. But you're not avoiding risk. You're avoiding uncertainty. And those are two different things. Risk can be calculated. Uncertainty just means you don't have all the information yet. And refusing to act without perfect information means you'll never act at all. Your brain does this because uncertainty feels like a threat. Back when humans were evolving, unknowns were dangerous. A rustle in the bushes could be nothing, or it could be a predator. So your brain learned to avoid anything unclear. Better safe than sorry. But that instinct is outdated. You're not facing life or death decisions anymore. You're facing career choices and investment options and relationship possibilities. And treating all uncertainty like danger is holding you back. The ambiguity effect also makes you easy to manipulate. Salespeople know this. They give you tons of information about the product they want you to buy. Every detail, every specification. And they give you almost no information about the competing product. Now you have one clear option and one ambiguous option. And your brain automatically leans toward the clear one, even if the ambiguous one is actually better. You're not making a rational choice. You're just avoiding uncertainty. This shows up in how you evaluate information too. You read an article that clearly supports your existing beliefs. Then you read another article that challenges those beliefs but has some gaps in the data. Which one do you trust? The clear one, not because it's more accurate, but because it's less ambiguous. Your brain prefers confident wrong answers over uncertain right answers. The ambiguity effect makes you miss out on growth. Growth requires stepping into the unknown. Trying things you've never done, taking paths you can't fully see. But your brain resists that. It wants to stay where things are familiar and predictable. So you keep doing the same things, getting the same results, and wondering why your life never changes. Here's the brutal truth. The people who succeed are not smarter than you. They're not luckier. They're just more comfortable with ambiguity. They can make decisions without having all the answers. They can move forward even when the path isn't completely clear. And that ability to act despite uncertainty is what separates them from everyone else. You see this in entrepreneurs. They start businesses without knowing if they'll succeed. They hire people without being certain it's the right choice. They launch products without guarantee they'll sell. And yeah, some of them fail. But the ones who succeed do so because they acted despite the ambiguity. Meanwhile, people with better ideas and more potential stay stuck because they're waiting for certainty that will never come. So why does your brain hate ambiguity so much? Because processing uncertainty requires mental effort. Your brain has to hold multiple possibilities in mind at once. It has to evaluate incomplete information. It has to make predictions without data. That's exhausting. So your brain takes a shortcut. It rejects the ambiguous option entirely and goes with whatever's clear. Less work, less stress, but also less opportunity. Your brain also hates ambiguity because it can't predict the outcome. And prediction makes you feel in control. When you know what's going to happen, you feel safe. When you don't know, you feel vulnerable. So you choose the predictable option not because it's better, but because it lets you maintain the illusion of control. But here's what you need to understand. Certainty is an illusion. Even the safe choice has unknowns. The company you think is stable could go bankrupt. The relationship you think is secure could end. Nothing is guaranteed. So when you choose based on avoiding ambiguity, you're not actually avoiding risk. You're just choosing different unknowns, and often worse ones. So how do you fight the ambiguity effect? How do you make better decisions when you don't have all the information? First, recognize when you're avoiding something just because it's unclear. Ask yourself if you actually think the safe option is better or if you just prefer it because you understand it. Most of the time, it's the latter. And once you see that, you can question whether that's a good enough reason. Second, get comfortable with partial information. You'll never have all the answers, ever. So waiting for complete certainty means never moving forward. Learn to make decisions with 70% of the information. That's enough. The last 30% usually doesn't change the outcome anyway. Third, focus on what you do know instead of what you don't. Yes, there are unknowns, but there are also knowns. What information do you have? What can you reasonably infer? What's the worst-case scenario, and can you handle it? Stop obsessing over the gaps and start working with what you have. Fourth, remember that inaction is also a choice. Staying where you are feels safe because it's familiar, but it's not neutral. You're choosing to miss out on potential opportunities. You're choosing to stay stuck. And that has consequences too. So when you avoid the ambiguous option, you're not avoiding a decision. You're making one. And finally, practice taking small risks with ambiguity. Start with low-stakes decisions where you don't have all the information. Try the new restaurant. Take the different route home. Apply for the job that's not perfectly clear. Get used to moving forward despite uncertainty. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Look, the ambiguity effect is your brain trying to protect you from the unknown. But in doing so, it's protecting you from growth, opportunity, and anything that could make your life better. Because better always comes with unknowns. Better is never guaranteed. And if you only choose what you completely understand, you'll never choose anything great. The truth is, life is ambiguous. The future is uncertain. And no amount of analysis or planning will change that. So you have two choices. You can keep avoiding anything unclear and stay exactly where you are. Or you can learn to act despite the ambiguity and see where it takes you. Most people choose safety. They choose what they know. And they spend their whole lives wondering what they missed. Don't be most people. Subscribe if you're tired of playing it safe and getting nowhere.